From multiplayer games like Escape from Tarkov and Hunt Showdown to single-player entries like Witchfire, extraction shooters may very well be one of my favourite genres. The amount of adrenaline that courses through your veins as you carry the value of a small country to the extraction point, or the fight or flight mentality that takes over when you're put into an impossible situation, gives you a thrill that very few games can hope to accomplish. This cassette futurism-inspired extraction shooter Ark Raiders is no exception. Before I begin, most of the B-roll that is recorded by me will have my performance stats in the top right. This is on an RTX 4070 Super with a Ryzen 5 9600X if you wish to see what performance is like on a slightly higher than mid-range setup at 1080p. This game might be one of the most finely crafted experiences in the extraction shooter genre, taking the traders and quest system from Tarkov while pairing it with gameplay akin to Star Wars Battlefront. The things that it does differently set it apart from the rest and make it something I feel comfortable recommending to others. I've had the opportunity to participate in the playtest that occurred over this past weekend, and I've been nothing short of impressed. Gunplay felt good, movement felt good, looting felt good, with some jank situations opening containers, but I've never once felt cheated out of a loot or a fight with a bug or mechanic. Unlike Tarkov, the rogue faction in this game are robots. From drones, rollers, to quadrupedal walkers with miniguns and lasers, every single one of these are a threat to the unprepared. To preface this section, in Ark Raiders there are 5 different types of ammo, from light, medium, heavy, with shotgun shells, and energy rounds as additional. Each of these have their own arc penetration value, which indicates how good it is at piercing the more heavily armoured arcs that you may encounter, and trust me, some of these can feel downright bullshit. I'm looking at you, the Rocketeer. Basic wasps and hornets of the drone category can be taken out with nearly any weapon, with precise aiming at their rotors being the weak spot. Take out any 2 of them and they'll almost always come crashing to the ground in a nice satisfying explosion. What you will notice, however, is that if you only take out one rotor, the enemy is lightly stunned while it tries to figure out how to stabilize using its reduced capacity. The really cool part about this is that it's all done with machine learning and it wasn't done by hand, giving it a really genuine feel every time you interact with them. Rocketeers, on the other hand, you will always catch me running in the other direction if I'm queuing solo. These things are relentless and not afraid to barrage you with pretty high radius rocket spam until your giblets are in the atmosphere. Just last night, a trio I happened across while playing with my friends was locked in a bunker because the Rocketeer was camping just out front, waiting for them to show their faces for more than 2 seconds. It was absolutely hilarious to look at from a distance. Until our dumbasses got a little bit too close, and now we were the explosive pincushion. Other than flyers, there are multiple types of Land Rovers. Ball and spider-based ones tend to be found indoors with the exception of the Ark Surveyor, and the quad as well as octopedral, laser and minigun enjoyers are often found roaming near extraction points and higher tier loot areas, with the Ark Queen being an in-game event only spawn that even with the best gear is often best avoided unless you have a coordinated group of 3. Dare I even say multiple groups of 3, with the reward being a lot of high tier gear and parts. Looting is very akin to Tarkov in the sense that you interact with bags, containers, filing cabinets, car boots, bonnets, the kitchen sink, etc., in which goodies are hiding inside. There is also the occasional loose loot item on a shelf. The thing that Ark does differently is how these items function can be stored in your inventory. While you can loot different tiers of items such as larger arc plates and canisters, if you don't specifically need that piece, you can break it down into green and grey tier, which has higher stacking capacity and often weighs less if you're having issues being over encumbered. On top of this, on the skill tree there is a node that enables in-raid basic crafting. This is extremely useful if you come across higher tier fabrics or thermal arc blankets, since these can be turned into basic fabric, which in turn can be turned into bandages, something that is almost always sought after if you spend a long time in raid. What I like most about this is how it interacts with your pre-raid loadout decisions. There are multiple different kit types we could use in the beta, which were limited to the free kit, the looter, the tactical, and the combat. Each of these have their own merits and demerits, such as the looter giving you the most storage, but limiting your quick use item slots and your shields to light, while the fighter gives you the most quick use item slots with 5, but severely limiting the amount of loot you can pick up, including your carry capacity in general. After a raid, when your spoils are moved to your stash, you can use them to craft things such as weapons, ammo, bandages, attachments, you name it. Unlike Tarkov, all of these crafts are instant. There is no waiting around for 15 minutes to 10 hours. If you want it, you got it. There is a distinct lack of a player market, which is for the better in my opinion, as it allows systems like these not to be balanced around some abusable player economy, and with real less world trading taking place. As I mentioned towards the start of the video, the gunplay in this game feels a lot like Star Wars Battlefront, but better. This is particularly due to the fact that both are set in a cassette futurism universe while also being third-person shooters. The other part is the fact that the chief executive officer of Embark Studios, Patrick Sutherland, I'm sorry if I butchered that, used to be DICE's former CEO, bringing some talent along with him. This is extremely noticeable if you're running around with a pistol, since the animation and how the weapon is held is very reminiscent of how the Rebels and Han Solo sprint around with their blaster. Shields in this game are not a secondary health bar. They act as a layer of damage reduction, with the basic shields being a 40% mitigation. This is great in my opinion, as it means that health and shield meds both have meaning in their own right, and are not interchangeable. It brings in unique situations where you might find fabric lying around to craft bandages, but if you're shieldless, you're still going to take a large quantity of damage, forcing you to either interact with Ark enemies or seek out Ark wreckages if you want to restore your valuable shields. There are no hit markers. You heard me correctly. 0. Every bit of feedback you get from shooting a player is in-universe feedback. If you hit or deplete a player on a shield, you will both have an audio and visual indicator, as well as with health hits being reinforced with red splatters. If someone is downed, a distressed flare will fire from your kit regardless of whether you are indoors or outdoors. I am genuine when I say I love this feedback so much. Hit markers are such a cheap and effective way to give feedback on your shooting, which is to say, I don't think hit markers are the biggest crime in gaming, as that is probably reserved for yellow paint, but seeing such a diegetic take on feedback that is both satisfying and understandable impressed me so much the first time I interacted with the system. I'm just gonna say it. The game is optimized. A rare thing to say in this age of gaming, and rarer when I mention that it is built on Unreal Engine 5. Out of the gate, on boot, the game put me at maximum settings on my 1440p ultrawide, with a balanced DLSS setting on my 4070 Super and a Ryzen 5 9600X, and I was maintaining a consistent 100 FPS at nearly all points of the game. The exceptions were FPS increases in smaller spaces such as buildings. I later turned off DLSS and turned down to about medium to high settings, and I was maintaining a solid 140 to 160 FPS on average. However, I wouldn't really recommend turning off DLSS or the other forms of upscaling that are provided, since if you don't use any form of upscaling, you don't have access to anti-aliasing, which is a minor gripe I have, as FXAA or MXAA as an alternative would be nice. But that gripe is besides the point. We have a very stylized and realistic looking game with wide open landscapes, lots of moving parts, sounds, and features that are akin to premium games for premium gamers, running at an astounding FPS count given the history and the stigma of this game engine. And I feel like it just shows that we don't have to settle for what the AAA industry deems acceptable. While the sample size of my hardware is in fact small, given the vast potential combinations of hardware available, I'm comfortable in saying that this game runs great, and if there are any updates or changes that make that not true, I will attempt to either pin a comment someone else has made, or my own that I can edit with new information. Overall, I'm not ashamed to admit, I pre-ordered the deluxe edition. I want to see where this is going, and I think Embark Studios has such a good history of games so far that I'm not afraid to shell out the $90 Australian for it. My rating for the playtest would be about 8 out of 10, and that's really only because it felt like I just needed more progression. Obviously, this was a playtest, a demo, but it just left me yearning for more. I wanted to upgrade my workbenches, I wanted to see what more the traders had to offer, I wanted to keep doing the quests, and instead I'm forced to wait 2 more weeks. This is a punishment, and I feel terrible, but I can't wait. And hopefully in 2 weeks, I'll see you guys in game as well. Peace.